Hello, world, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Little Bit Different podcast. I hope this finds you well, wherever you might be in the world, wherever it is that you're listening to this. I'm sending you loads of love and just so glad that you're along for this journey. This episode is a big one, and it's about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, something that I really care about, and something that's been extremely helpful to me in becoming the person who I really want to be and becoming the person who I believe is achieving and reaching my potential, the essentially becoming the person who I want to be. And it's been so much fun preparing for this episode as well, because there's so many different moments of my life that I've been able to pinpoint and reflect upon, to think about in some way sort of how far I've come. And what I'm going to talk about today is self-image psychology, specifically a recording by Earl Nightingale, which I've used many, many times in my life. I've listened to it thousands of times, and it's helped me whenever I want to create a new part of myself, or to be a new person in essence. All the first starting point will be my self-image psychology and my self-image psychology list. And I'll talk a little bit about that, and what all of it comes from. But the point of all of this, the intention, right? Every episode, I'm like, cool, what is the intention? If you're being kind enough to give me your energy and focus with me, then I want to tell you the intention. The intention is to provide some form of framework or ability to write the story of your life, and to become a person that you want to be, and to become a person who you are proud of being. Now, what's interesting about self-image psychology and this is that this is one element. It's one minuscule element, one possibility of a way that we can write the story of our lives and become the people that we want to be. And there are so many different ways to do this. For me, everything that I'm going to share about and a little bit about the philosophy is very healthy, and all of it makes sense, and it aligns with me. And so much of everything that I speak about is related to beliefs. So I have this belief that somehow showed up in my mind, that I'm able to create the person who I want to be, and then I live that life of that person, and then I do things that that person would do, and then suddenly I am that person. So for me, in my paradigm and the way that I live, all of this makes sense. Whatever I'm sharing today, if this doesn't land for you, that's perfect, and it doesn't have to land for you. And if there's one thing that you take away from this that benefits you, then the time and effort that I put forward in creating this is totally worthwhile, and I'm going to have a really comfy sleep tonight. Also, that being said, I have a lot of friends who are really successful and who really are the person that they want to be, and continually evolving in that journey. And they do it in very, very different ways. Maybe they do it in some ways that I would think would be destructive, like with alcohol or other substances or whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think about what they do, in the same way it doesn't matter what they think about what I do. The only thing that matters is that it makes sense to me. So in the spirit of being truthful and authentic and really myself, I just want to share what has worked for me and where I've seen results in my life when it comes to this idea of crafting and developing the person who I want to become. So I will start by giving a massive shout out, firstly, to Bob Proctor, who's one of my favorite teachers. And Bob Proctor has an audio book that's called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life, that I listened to the first time when I was in Praia, Brazil, walking with my dogs at sunset in the sand dunes and the national park, Jericoacoara Park. And I remember just it blew my mind. And this whole idea of a paradigm, and that we live within a paradigm, was a major shift for me. And it's so cool when you have those light bulb moments. And a lot in that audio book, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life, Bob Proctor talks about one of Earl Nightingale's recordings, which is called self-image psychology. And if you just go to YouTube and you put in Earl Nightingale self-image psychology, you'll find the video. And most of what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about what that video says, and most importantly, how I've used that video, and examples of how self-image psychology works. A, how it worked subconsciously with me, like when I wasn't aware that I was doing certain things, and then B, how it worked consciously for me when I was aware of what I was doing. and when I was choosing the narratives and choosing the stories of who I wanted to become. So essentially, the whole essence of the 6-minute recording by Earl Nightingale, and it's from the 60s, it's from a while back. The idea is that you are the person that you think you are, right? So you are the person that you think that you are, and you have a certain image or view of yourself and what you're capable of and what you're able to do and what your limits are and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you constantly reinforce that every day with the various thoughts that you think, and not only the thoughts that you think, but the beliefs that you have about yourself. So the point of bringing awareness and shining a light on your self-image or your self-image psychology is, okay, here I am, I'm Cory, and I think all of these things about the world, and people treat me a certain way because I have this belief about myself. And sometimes when I get frustrated or upset, it's because I have this belief. And all of it is just a crazy process that's going on in our head all of the time. But what's really cool is you can choose those beliefs that you have about yourself, and you can change those beliefs about yourself. And so most importantly, why this matters to me is that when you have your current self-image psychology, that your self-view, the way that you look at yourself, what you believe is possible, there's a ceiling on that. There's a limit on that. So if I have a story about me with money or in relationships or with my family or whatever it is, and I have a feeling like, oh, I'm never good at this. I'm never able to do this. I'm not good at this. This is something that I'm not good at. There are limits of what I will be able to achieve based on that story that I'm telling myself about myself. And that's just my self-image. But the cool thing is we can change that image that we have of ourselves, and we can expand that image to be the person who we want to be. So whatever's happening right now, what is right now doesn't really matter. The real focus has to be about who is it that I want to become and what type of person do I want to be. And the thing that lights me up the most about all of this is in the recording, there's a point where he says, he talks about, okay, you are your thoughts, you are your beliefs, and what you achieve is going to be limited by your self-image and how you look at yourself. But the coolest thing is when you expand your self-image and you change the way that you look at yourself and what you believe is possible for yourself, the way that you behave starts changing. Because if you want to be this new person, then the way that type of person would act has to be different than what it is that you're doing. And that's something that really relates very, very strongly to me. And I'm going to jump into that a little bit later, but I just want to start off with some examples of like subconscious or unconscious self-image limiting beliefs. And I'm just going to speak from my personal life because I want to share all this and I want to give really, really good examples. So growing up, my dad played, even before I was born, my dad played a lot of basketball, and he always injured his ankles. And he had lots of stories about being at Mackenzie High School and playing on the basketball team. And after the game, he would put his foot in the toilet to ice it, and ankles, 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 ankles. Then now I'm born. Yeah, what's up? I'm here. And he's playing floor hockey. For all of you non-Canadians, floor hockey is a form of hockey. It's hockey on the floor that you don't have skates. But he was playing floor hockey and he rolled his ankle, and I think he had a terrible injury. And then I don't know, however old he was at that time, he was sort of like, okay, I'm done. I'm finished with sports. And everything was ankles, 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 ankles. Like, ankles are bad. Ankles are evil. My bad ankles. Ankles are bad. Be careful of your ankles. Whenever I was a kid playing basketball, it's always like ankles, 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 ankles. A lot of ankles, as you can hear. And then for me, what happened, so I was like always, oh my gosh, what was my nervous system like when I thought about ankles? It was very, I was very triggered when it came to ankles. And then for me, when I was 17 years old, I had a water skiing accident and I ripped my hamstring. And then for me, then it was like my hamstrings. So I took this on for my father, I'm his number one fan. There's no one I love more in the world. And everything for me became my hamstrings. And then I started this self-image story that I'm not flexible and I have bad hamstrings. And I just kept going and going and going. And honestly, 15 years of my life were spent believing that God did not give me good hamstrings and that I have terrible hamstrings and I'm not a flexible person and all these sorts of things. And it just like, until the moment that I realized that that was a story and that was part of my self-image psychology, it ran my life. Another thing about me, my old self-image psychology, was that I didn't like to work hard. I was always, um, oof. Yeah, I always was able to get good results with minimal effort in everything that I did in my life. And so I started a story with myself. I was like, oh, like I don't want to work hard. And when I took my first law job at Denton's, I probably worked a third of the hours that the other lawyers my age worked, just because I had this belief. I was like, oh, I don't really want to work hard. Like I'm not, that's not me. That's not who I am. I don't like work. Work doesn't excite me. That was a story. That was a part of my self-image, how I saw myself. I don't like to work hard. And then I think the biggest one, which, maybe I've 5 years ago I changed this, but it's just the life of a traveler. I was a traveler for so long. It was such a part of my self-image, and part and parcel of being a traveler was like not wanting to stay in hotels and not, being super stoked to be in a 16-bed dorm room when I'm in my early 30s, which like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's sort of like it was just running the show in and of itself. And and then there were several things that I've done, and I've spoken about Landmark before, but one of the biggest things was for me was doing Landmark. And when I went through Landmark, I realized like, oh, I just have all of these stories about things. Like I have a story about myself, I have a story about how I view myself and different things in my life and what they mean. Hamstrings, not liking to work hard, and the idea of being a traveler and what that meant. More of a budget traveler. That was part of my self-image. And so whatever I was able to achieve during that time was totally related to my self-image. So do you think, based on everything that I've shared, do you think it's possible for me to be flexible if the self-image I have about myself is that I'm an inflexible person and I'm unable to touch my toes because I have bad hamstrings? Is it possible to be flexible with that? Probably not. Like those are two really counterintuitive things. And the biggest point, and I'm going to talk about lists in a moment, but the biggest point that I want you to know about self-image psychology is that you're going to continually look for what you want to see. So when I had this belief and I had this story about my self-image that I was not flexible and I couldn't touch my toes and I had bad hamstrings, everywhere. Oh, my lower back hurts. Oh, I can't even touch my toes. I can't do this, whatever it is. It was there all the time. Not wanting to work hard. Okay. Yeah. Very, very easy. I want to leave. I want to go play sports. I want to be with my friends. I want to travel. I want to do anything but work. There. And it's just that's the more evidence and support that we get, the firmer these beliefs that we have about ourselves grow. And ultimately what self-image psychology is, or your own self-image is, it's a life-governing device. So it's the way that you interpret everything that happens around the world and the way that everyone acts around you. And then also it just, all of the decisions that you'll make on a daily basis will feed into that. And what I love about this is there was a moment when I listened to this tape where I just was really committed to wanting to write the script of my life and wanting to be the person who I wanted to be, which is, I can promise you one thing, it's an ongoing process. This morning I listened to the tape and I took notes, and I'm continuing to reinforce the different and new elements of who I want to be and the way and the type of person that I want to be. But it's an ongoing process, and B, it's all connected to the beliefs that you have about yourself. And I think a really, really great starting point for all of this. So I've shared, hopefully I've been able to like share a bit of information about what self-image psychology is. So let's just like do a little bit of a brief summary. So one, self-image psychology is the idea that you have a story and a view of who you are and what you're capable of. And maybe that view is conscious, or maybe that view is subconscious. So maybe it's just things that you've always thought, like, things that you've always thought, or things that you have consistently experienced. Oh, people always respond to me in this way, so it must mean this. And the important thing to note is that you can control the self-image psychology. You can control your self-image, and most of it is going to be based on beliefs. So it's going to be what you believe about yourself, what you believe you're capable of, and how you see yourself and what you think that you can do. Most importantly, you will achieve within the limits of your own self-image. So if you want to achieve something more than what you're currently getting or something that you've ever done, then you need to expand the way that you look at yourself, and you need to expand what you believe is possible in order to allow those things to come in, and in order to be the type of person who does those sorts of things. So that's self-image psychology in a nutshell. I gave some examples of, subconsciously stories I had in my life, and also like maybe this is a good moment for you. I invite you to think about maybe some stories you have in your life where you're like, oh, this doesn't serve me, or this is something that I've always said, like, oh, I'm too emotional, or I get angry very quickly, or nobody loves me, or any of those sorts of things. Okay. Now, that's the background on it. Now I want to talk a little bit about how I use this recording and how I apply it to my life and the different ways that I've seen incredible success with it. And again, the point of doing this is just so that it helps you. So the first thing is every morning I will sit. I have my journal, I have a notebook and a pen, and I'll sit, and before I open my phone or do anything else, I'll meditate, I'll journal, I'll just do some free pages. I forget what that woman from The Artist's Way calls it. And then I'll listen to an Esther Hicks video and I'll take notes, and then I'll put on self-image psychology. So now I'm sitting and every single morning, even though I write the exact same notes every day, I sit and I write the notes every morning, just because for me that really, really helps apply the things and think of them. The next thing that I do is I've made a list on my phone, which is called right now it's called Cory Self-Image 2024. So I can't tell you how many different iterations or versions of this list that I've had in my life. And what's amazing is like it always improves. Like the things, the person who I am and the person I'm becoming in 2024 is like on a different level than who I was when I first started listening to this in 2021, which is awesome. That's the point, that we're constantly growing. And I will read aloud the different things that I have in my self-image psychology. And so I'll say, and I think the first thing is like, I am a powerful creator. That's part of my self-image. I'm a powerful creator. Another is that in any moment I can choose love over fear. So this is what type of person I am. I'm a powerful creator. I can choose love over fear. And then there's a whole bunch of other specific things. So like one, as it relates to flexibility, is like I'm a very flexible person who stretches every day and has a stretching habit and routine, and is working with coaches to constantly take care of my body in the best way possible. That's my self-image. That's who I am. And so I have a whole list of different self-image things that I'll do. And like sometimes different things pop up, right? So as an example, I shared this when I was in my podcast about hiring a team. Being a manager is not something that really, really naturally came to me. And it's not something that the first couple of years I did it, I didn't love it and I didn't really get it. And then I added to my list of self-image psychology. I was like, I am an amazing manager who people love to work with. I'm able to inspire my team. I'm respected. And the people who work with me have a ton of fun and are developing themselves personally. So every single morning I'm drinking my mate, doing my thing, and I read that, and I read that out loud. And it's sort of like the first time you read it, it's a little bit strange because I'm like, who's this awesome guy? Who's this awesome manager guy? But you read it, and then as I'm going through all of the different things that I'm reading, I notice, yeah, then it just, you sort of integrate it. And now, so I have my list of my self-image that I'm constantly putting together and constantly reading. The next thing that I'll do is I'll create another list on my phone, and that will be called proof of self-image. Okay. And this is like the proof of list. That's the magic. This is where everything really, really happens, because remember, all of this is based on your beliefs. So when I come up with something like, oh, I'm an awesome manager who people love working with, or, oh, I'm super flexible. And I'm going to take a moment, everyone. I'm just going to brag about something. And this was on my list. But 2 or 3 days ago, I was hanging out and I was just like moving my body a little bit. And I was standing straight and I extended my legs totally. I was like standing upright, and I was able to bend over and touch my toes with my legs being 100% hyperextended, fully straight. And there's not one person who knows what that means to me except for me. but I attribute my ability to do that is for reinforce, like probably 6 months ago when I wasn't even close to being able to touch my toes. I just put like, hey, I'm a flexible person who has a daily stretching routine. And then I just read it and I read it and I read it and I read it. But coming back to the list, sorry, that's like my brag, right? Like I'm entitled to those to just talk about. And what does it say about me that the thing I'm most proud of is touching my toes? I don't know, but it's the truth. So um, the lists are a really really important thing because how the list work is okay. I have I have my self image 2024. This is the person who I want to be. Blah 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 blah. Then the other list is called proof of Cory's self image 2024. Now, anytime that anything happens that supports anything that's written on my self image 2024, I put it down. So, for example, um, being able to do, to lift weights and go for a run and play paddle and have my body feel amazing, like that's a win. Being able to touch my toes, that's totally a win. When I, get awesome feedback from someone on my team about, managerial style, that would go down. And it's so fantastic and beautiful when you start reviewing these lists. And it's like normally my relationship with the list of proof of is I won't read it that often. Every time it happens, I'll write it down. So like, okay, cool. Something happens. Great. This is proof of financial abundance. This is proof of amazing friendship. This is proof of being a supportive family member. This is proof of this. This is proof of that, whatever it is. And I won't read it like it's not like I go to sleep and I read that list every day, but like probably like every 5 days I'll be like, oh, maybe I'll go through. And you just see it and you're like, oh my God, all of these things really did happen. And I really am that person. I'm becoming that person because a person who is flexible and has a stretching routine would be able to touch their toes, to go 15 days in a row with stretching, would be able to, play all these activities and have their body feel really good and all that sort of stuff. And so the lists are really, really the magic for me. And also it's just like it's sort of like a basic law of attraction principle where what you notice you'll continue to see more of, and I think that's really what this comes down to. But it's also cool because you realize that you can control what you look at and you can control what you focus on, and that's how you become the person who you want to be. And I think the the one the one piece that means so much to me about self-image psychology, because this is about the transformation and the evolution of who we are as people. And it's true that whatever it is that we want, well, once we achieve it, we're going to want something else. So it never ends. It's not like Cory's self-image 2024 is going to be the last self-image list that I ever make. Who knows? Maybe I, start a family, and then my self image will, a lot of it will be about being an amazing father and what that looks like. Or maybe, I'll start new businesses, and so all of that's good. But the one thing that I love most about the self image psychology, and this is the test that I have for all of you. And in the last 5 minutes, I'm going to put all this together so that you have something practical that you can sort of walk away with and use. But the test for me is, and this is what Earl Nightingale says in the recording. He talks a lot, and you should listen to it. But he says, you know, and then suddenly, like if you do the things that the person as yourself, the person in your self image would do, you suddenly become that person. And I have goosebumps even as I say that, because there have been so many times where I do something or I achieve something or something happens and I realize, like, wow, that is such a stark difference from who I was before. But also it really holds a standard for future decisions to come to, right? Because if I want to be this person who who lives in financial abundance and who's super flexible and who can travel wherever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, with whoever he wants, and runs an amazing business online and has his customers love him and is of service and a great manager and all these sorts of things, then when you're prompted with a decision that you have to make in your life, it's really easy to decide what to make, right? I think one of the biggest challenges we come up against is not knowing what to do, not knowing how to act, not knowing which way is the right way. And when you are able to have a test, a litmus test, which basically says, okay, what would the person in my self-image do like that? So as an example, one of my current self-images is that I'm a happy, healthy multimillionaire in an amazing relationship with a wonderful woman who lives in peace, joy, and love. Okay. Now, if there's a decision that comes up to me in my life where I'm not sure what to act, like maybe it's a business opportunity, maybe it's something related to a personal relationship, whatever it is, I stop and I ask myself, okay, what would a, happy, healthy, multimillionaire in an amazing relationship with a wonderful woman who lives it with joy, peace, and love do in this situation? And that's it. It's like, that's it. That's what you do. That's how you figure out when the framework is, how would the person who I want to become behave in this situation? And that's the framework for decisions that you start making. You really take everything to the next level. And that's how you become the person that you want to be. And I also, before I go to the summary, I just want to say one thing is that this isn't like, it's not a magic pill where when it's like, oh, I wrote this on my self-image, I'm going to get it. So as an example, I went to Mount Aconcagua in Argentina in 2022, in January, February 2022. And I was like, for my self-image for like 4 months, I am the type of person who can summit Mount Aconcagua. It's 6,900 meters. On summit day, I made it to 6,600, and then I got really, really ill, and the expedition leader forced me to turn back. Okay, so it's not the end of the world. It's not going to give you everything that you want, but the point is to enjoy the unfolding of that journey to becoming who it is that you want to be, and that's what's so important. So we don't want to be attached to outcomes. It's not like my self image is like, oh, I have $27 million. Like, if you want $27 million, that's awesome, but it's more about using this as a compass and a guide in daily life for being who you want to be, and also like stopping the stories that aren't serving you and dropping the shit that doesn't light you up and that you're not proud of and that you don't want to do anymore. And I can just think of so many of my amazing friends who I've seen turn their lives around and create amazing things in their lives by choosing to focus differently and being intentional in what they focus on. So for me, this has been it's been an amazing tool. It's something that it's completely free, that, and you find your own way. Just again, just because I sit and I write in the morning and then I make lists and I put down evidence in support of those lists doesn't mean that you have to do that. All that I want is you to reach your potential. I want you to be the person that you want to be. I want you to make the difference that you want to be in the world. And I want to feel like you're living the life that you were meant to live and being who you really want to be. So this is just one tool that can be used that I've been very lucky to leverage in the most fantastic way. And it's also just fun. Like, it's so cool also looking back at old self-image lists and realizing what I've been able to create. And yeah, it's just beautiful. So before I hop into the summary, I just want to thank Earl Nightingale, who passed many years ago, and I also want to thank Bob Proctor, who passed 2 years ago, for bringing this into my life, and like my amazing teachers. So in summary, to bring all of it together, self-image psychology is the idea that you have a certain view of yourself, and you will be able to achieve within that view that you have. Also, this view that you have of yourself will inform all of the interactions and contextualize everything that's happening to you in your life. So if someone treats you a certain way, if someone doesn't treat you a certain way, if you make a sale, if you don't make a sale, if you have a fight with your partner, if you don't have enough money, whatever it is, you have all of these different self-image views going on. Some are conscious, some are subconscious. But ultimately, that's the means of how you look at your life, based on what you believe is possible, based on your personality trait and who you are and what you do. Now, the best part about a self-image psychology is that you can choose the beliefs that you have about yourself, and you don't need to have them right now in order to do that, but you can work towards them. And some of the biggest tools for being able to do that are making a list of the person who you want to be. So that's a really big one, making a list of being like, hey, this is how I view myself. I am a dot, 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 dot. I am a dot, 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 dot. And, can be related to finances, to spirituality, to family, to relationships, to work, to anything that it is that you want. and you write down the person that you want to become. The next thing that you do, sort of step two, is you make a list of any time you see any form of evidence whatsoever that supports that self-image. And then it just happens. It really gets a lot of momentum going, where you'll see that all of the things that you had written down there, slowly but surely you see examples of this evidence into your life. And then slowly but surely you realize, like, oh, I actually am becoming that person. And then the last piece is sort of the litmus test that you can hold to yourself, where it's like, okay, if I'm the type of person who ABC, how would that person act in this situation? If I'm unsure, if I'm confronted with a challenge, if I'm tempted by something, let's say as an example, yeah, let's say I had a physical body goal that I was, if I had a physical body goal that I was pursuing, would the person who holds my self-image, sorry guys, would I have that extra piece of cake, or would I have that whatever it is? And in that moment, you're like, no, the person who I want to be actually would do this, or you'd say, yes, the person who I want to be would actually do this. So thank you so much for your attention. This is it's a different way of looking at things. And like I said at the beginning, it doesn't have to be for you. Maybe some of this resonated, maybe it doesn't resonate. Try it on, listen to the recording if you feel called to. When you're listening to it, if it inspires you, that's awesome. If you have any feedback about this, feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to support you on it. And I just share it from a place of love, because I see, and I continually see, the massive impact that this has made for me in my life, and the ability to live the life of my dreams and be the person who I want to become, and the person that I'm becoming. And it's, like I said, it's not something like you do it once and then it's done. It's like going to the gym. It's like building a muscle. It's like learning a language. It's like every little day you just do 1% for it, and then you look backwards in 6 months and realize, holy smokes, I actually have become that person. So with love and gratitude, I'm giving y'all a what's up. I appreciate you listening. And remember the most important thing: stay different.